This is the Functionised podcast. May you be a better version of yourself each day. Live Functionised.
Hey, Brad. Thank you for joining us here. I really appreciate it.
Oh, I'm excited to get functionized, man. This is cool. I love the high-tech studio scene here.
It's something a little different. We've been working with Ming in a shared universe podcast studio for a little while, and with all the fun stuff going on around us, he's kind enough to find ways to bring us together this way.
Right on.
So I like your setup there. How long have you been doing your podcast for now? And
I've been trying to get
this actually professional it up.
I've been trying to get a cool background going at the suggestion of my my sidekick Elle that hosts the Primal Blueprint podcast. But
Yes.
There's a fisheye effect, so it's wider than you think. And I thought I had this nice little thing, and then people see my junky shelf, and you just can't get away from it, man. So finally, I got the giant. There we go. Yeah, the giant podcast logo. So at least we're making an effort in the background there. I've been doing this podcast for a couple of years, but the Primal Blueprint show has been going on since 2012. We're like old timers. We were just throwing a show up there every week, but we didn't really take it seriously. But now the medium has been such an amazing growth, and I think it's the emerging top choice for media education. So I'm really excited to be in it and keep going hard, man. How about you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it started out a couple years ago. My cohort, we do a lot of things together still, but we decided let's nerd out during the week. And we would pick a topic. He would read journals, I would read journals, and we would get together on a Friday afternoon and have a lift tequila. And we would just go for it. And it's kind of obviously evolved ever since then. But that's, to me, the whole idea of, the idea of podcasting is meeting good people like yourself and having fun discussions.
So what's is there like a theme or, health topics that you discuss, or where do you want to take this conversation?
This conversation, I mean, you and I think, could probably go for hours and hours and hours. You're a busy guy. So when you started out as a triathlete, was that pretty much where you started with your athletic career?
Yeah, I mean, a runner, high school, college, and then I was on the pro circuit for 9 years. So that was that kind of launched me into my career in health and fitness and writing and doing all the stuff that I do today. Was just trying to optimize the body and compete in a really difficult sport that destroys your health in many ways. So a lot of the message that I'm trying to communicate today is how to do this stuff right so you don't fall apart and get broken down, burnt out, overtrained, all those things that athletes have to discover the edge and then kind of recalibrate.
So a lot of athletes think, I got to go harder, harder, harder. There is no stopping. Forget what my body is telling me. It's pounded harder, otherwise I'm not doing anything. So when you are training for triathlons and you've hit a level that many in their sport could only dream of, what did you do in your training in order to recover and stay at a level where you're able to perform at your peak?
Oh, so are we rolling now? Is this?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, good, great, love it. What I did, Jim, was I got my ass kicked many times in a very dramatic and intense forum where you learn those lessons of success and failure so dramatically. And you can't lie to yourself, and you can't make an excuse, or you can't get the promotion, even though the other guy, you thought you deserved it, and he deserved. And in the workplace, we kind of have a circuitous way of succeeding. But when you do something wrong, or your mindset's off, and you're an athlete, and you get your butt kicked, you got to go home and go, "Wow, what is this?" And what I discovered was I had these personality flaws like impatient or impulsivity or unregulated competitive intensity that got the better of me in the 6 weeks leading up to this important race where, I was a big fat failure in front of everybody. And so you have to come back and decide what you're all about, try to organize your different goals in the priority of things. And if it's your ego that you need to feed every single day and that's your main goal, that's going to get in the way of these beautiful high-minded stated goals that I want to pursue my potential as an athlete and compete with the very best. But if you can't get out of your own way, that's when you're going to be stuck in these repeating patterns of negativity and poor performance. So because it was such a rough experience where there was nothing kind of filtering out, it was pretty easy to see where I'd gone wrong and then to make adjustments really quickly. And mainly it was forcing myself to rest more and harness that competitive intensity every single day in training, so the workouts had a clear purpose. I was able to regulate my heart rate or whatever the best laid plans that we set up. You got to stick to the plan. You got to be patient. All these things. So it's really like a personality exercise, just as much as it was who was physically the strongest, toughest, most badass person. And I think to take the answer out to everybody who's pursuing fitness goals, we're socialized this way in fitness culture to think that no pain, no cane is the way to go, and that you can't miss a day, or you got to. They use the words like consistency when it comes to fitness, and sometimes the body doesn't want to be consistent. If you wake up and you feel lousy on a certain day and you don't feel like going to the gym, that's a really powerful sign that you need to change your pattern and listen to the body and give it the rest it needs.
When you say you got to get your ass kicked at the beginning, you got any certain incidences that kind of stand out and say, wow, that was rough at the time, but I'm so glad I went through that exact time?
Oh, sure. I have an interesting story because when I started, I had this dream of being an athlete my whole life, and I got to run at the college level, but I got injured and sick so many times that my career ended really quickly. I discovered this wonderful sport of triathlon, and I competed in the age groups, when I was a college student, and then into the working world. I had this miserable job in an accounting firm, and so I had this dream of trying to make it on the pro circuit. And it was really difficult back then because the sport was really small and there were these really good, accomplished pros. And I was just this young guy fighting the battle and going out there and training. But I loved the experience so much, Jim. I loved waking up every single day and calling myself a pro triathlete of some sort. I wasn't winning any money yet, but I just got on my bike and I'd ride as far as I wanted to, and I'd listen to my body, and I'd rest, or I'd take a nap if I was tired, or I'd skip a day if I was tired. But I didn't have a coach. We didn't have any technology. It was just me waking up with a smile on my face every single day, glad to be out of that accounting firm and going to the starting line of a race with this full heart and so much excitement and energy. And I didn't really care that I was 17th or 21st or 12th, or I wasn't all caught up in measuring and judging my performance and attaching my ego to my performance. I was just this exuberant young athlete that was doing what I wanted to do every single day. So the funny thing that happened with that approach, again, totally haphazard, none of the structure and the focus that we see when we go to the Olympic Training Center and you see the documentary. But at the end of my first year as a rookie professional, I upset the top ranked guys in the world and had this surprise victory on the circuit. So all of a sudden I was a nobody, and then I launched myself right into a name who people were discussing because it was such a surprise win. And it was kind of a transition from this pure and totally intuitive approach to now people were calling me up. They were trying to sponsor me. They were paying attention to me. The media was paying attention to me. The guys I were training with were now using me as the marker because they knew that if they could, train at my level or kick my butt in training, they had a chance to do better in the races. So sort of all those things that served to help me succeed when I was a rookie with this, loosey-goosey approach. Now I start to tighten things up, and now I got to get serious, and now I got to write everything down, and now I can't take a day off because people are trying to beat me in the next race, and I got to uphold my reputation. And that's kind of the answer to your question is when I started to get more serious and push myself harder and get more disciplined and focused and all those things that we think are positive attributes, that's when I got tired and struggled and I didn't listen to my sore throat. I kept training through it, and then I got a cold and I'm flat on my back. And so I had to recalibrate again to realize that kid that was able to beat the top guys in the world with this fun-loving approach, that's what I had to recapture. And that joy and that passion and that just completely free-spirited approach was actually far better than the badass with the complete focus and the game face on all the time.
Have fun. It sounds like learning just to go with it. Yes.
It's have fun, but I was corrected when I was coaching youth sports by a great coach that coached my son, and I was frustrated about an incident with some other coaches, and talking to him, and I said, "Look, isn't this all about having fun as the top priority?" And he goes, "No, not really." He goes, "The top priority of organized sports is to achieve a positive experience." And of course, he's talking about youth sports mostly. But I also think of this answer now as like, it's not always going to be fun. Sometimes it's going to suck. Sometimes you're going to have, a disappointment or something that causes, you look in the mirror and face yourself and do some reckoning. And so it's not all about fun, but it's all about coming out with a positive experience, whether you win or lose. And now I'm standing here. This is a long time ago, this stuff we're talking about. I haven't been racing for 25 years, but those lessons that I learned served to advance me as a person in really profound ways. And it was mostly the struggles and the failures and the setbacks where I achieved these great personal growth experiences. It was also a great growth experience to win a race and be on top and have my face on the magazine cover. But some of that was to still keep your ego in check and not get so caught up whether you were first place and on the cover of the magazine or whether you were 17th and a great disappointment. So really, that's why I titled my podcast, Get Over Yourself, is that was the number one lesson I had to learn as an athlete to be able to reach my potential and also enjoy myself along the way. We have a lot of people who have not gotten over themselves and have risen to high public official offices, or they're leaders in business and they fly around on their private jet and they have and buy anything they want, but they're not well adjusted as human beings. So they can't even enjoy the success because their approach is flawed, even if they're knocking out, the numbers and the material successes. So this idea that you can compete and pursue goals with great passion and intensity, but also enjoy the process along the way. That's kind of the theme that I'm trying to promote, because that's what worked for me as an athlete, and it worked for me as a parent, it worked for me in my career. Just push really hard, give it your best shot, but then go away with a smile, just like you described when you started your podcast. It was around tequila shots on a Friday night, having fun, but doing something worthwhile that really means a lot to you.
Absolutely. When you were just about to that next level, were your training times commensurating with where you should be? And so while you were surprised to be there for the rest of the world, did you kind of have an idea like, yeah, I'm there, guys. Just watch. It's my turn.
That's a great question, because I think any athlete can probably relate to this, or even someone who's about to turn in an incredible presentation they've been working on for 6 months, or nail a final exam like my son's studying through right now to finish UCLA. And you have to cultivate this natural sense of confidence, and you can't fake it. And it just comes through that hard work and that perseverance and making a series of good decisions. And then you start to feel that that confidence build up inside you. But I tried so many times to kind of fake that, or I told myself a story and I lied to myself thinking, yeah, I'm going to be right in there in the mix. And, when you try to do positive self-talk and all those things, but it's not based in, reality and actual results from day-to-day hard work. And I'm referencing the last 2 years of my career on the racing circuit. I did really well. I achieved, my best years. I was ranked third in the world at my very best. At the end of the season, I was national champion. And so on the heels of that success, you get some good sponsorship deals, you get a lot of incentives, people are inviting you to the races. But then I started to get tired and struggle, and I was really on my way out because I had lost that edge. And in triathlon, it's not a huge sport. It's not like golf where you're 78th one year and you make $2 million. It's like you're either right there and you're making a good living and everything's great, or if you're off a little bit, if you're off 5%, you are getting tossed out to the garbage can, and you can't make a living anymore. And so I hung around too long in the sport because I kept referencing myself as that guy who was winning races only 18 months ago. But it was clear in training that, my times were off 5 to 10% because my body was physically exhausted, because it's a really tough sport. And I've been traveling the world for 7-8 years on the circuit. And that was kind of the end of my run. Just like any athlete in the NBA, Major League Baseball, they know when the end of their run is there. Some of them stay around too long, and some of them don't. But you got to be honest about everything. And then you take these lessons forward to where, hey, I'm in a career. I'm 3 years down the road on this. I'm 13 years down the road on this, whatever it is. But you get that feeling inside that this is not the highest expression of your talents anymore, and that it's going to be time to move on. And sometimes those are tough, difficult decisions to make, to sever, what do they call it, sunk costs, where you went to chiropractic school for this many years, you're in debt, you get out there, you're into it 3 years, and you're like, nah, I'm not really feeling this. I think I'm going to be a podcast host instead. Those are big ones, and you gotta listen to those little voices inside.
You're talking about fatigue and exhaustion. Have you seen Iron Cowboy?
No, what's that?
50 Ironmans in 50 days over 50 states.
Whew, I think I've heard of that. Yeah. Impressive.
It's on Netflix now. And
wow.
Being the triathlete, what would you think about a challenge like that? You think the body could get through it?
Well, these extreme endurance performers are so amazing, and they show everybody what the human body and even the human mind is capable of. And I think it's great inspiration. And if you go, at a slow enough pace, then I don't think it's going to destroy the body physically, like a lot of efforts that are sort of in that in between land, where you get up and you're racing at kind of a faster pace for days and days on end, like the Tour de France or something. It's extremely physically destructive to the body. Whereby if someone wants to hike the Appalachian Trail and do it in 47 days to where they're going 23 miles a day, that's a nice day outdoors, enjoying nature, thinking about yourself, doing some self-reflection. It's pretty grueling, but it's not going to destroy you like some of those events that are, I think, I can't even celebrate them because it's so unhealthy for the body. But it's maybe a bucket list item for certain people. And that's about it.
Not on your bucket list. No.
Well, the extreme endurance stuff, I've been there and done that, and I've done some pretty exciting, all day bicycle rides. I rode my bicycle across the Sierra Nevada mountains on a mountain bike. Took 13 hours to make it to Lake Tahoe. And I put on an event to help other people do the same thing. And it was a great celebration of, enjoying nature and crossing the mountains like our ancestors did when they were, settling the West. But when something like that becomes chronic, that's when it switches from an amazing endurance achievement that's going to motivate and inspire you for years to come to something that's destroying your health. And so I think when people are looking at like the ultra marathon running scene, it's become very popular. These races are filled up now that used to be super obscure. Now there's thousands of people that want to run 100 miles. And there's a way to do that properly where you take care of your health along the way. And you put in these impressive workouts to prepare for the amazing challenge that's going to come on race day. But I think generally what we're seeing is this pattern of chronic exercise where the athlete gets up and thinks that they have to accomplish something substantial every single day or hit their weekly mileage goals. And you hear people talk about, I'm up to 100 miles a week now. I'm up to 70 miles a week now, rather than seeing the body as a dynamic, entity that requires smooth, fluctuating balances of stress and rest. And so you can hit those hard workouts, but then way more emphasis should be placed on recovery, resting, living a normal, healthy, balanced life, taking easy days, sitting out in the garden in the sun and reading a book, rather than putting in more miles and more miles and more miles. So the main message that I like to say to endurance athletes is to get out of those chronic patterns and have more fluctuation between your stress and rest, and have most of the workouts be comfortable, at a comfortable pace, feeling energized and refreshed afterward, rather than slightly broken down and hungry and exhausted.
Now, would you utilize any heart rate variability in order to figure out the days that you utilize different training methods, or did you kind of go on intuition?
Oh, good question. Yeah, I mean, I think the answer would be both, because the heart rate variability is wonderful technology. I think the greatest training breakthrough in history was the wireless heart rate monitor, and that came in about 33 years ago. I was one of the first users of the Polar unit back in '87. It was this giant square thing that you wore on your wrist. It was like a miniature toaster, but to be able to tap into the heart rate and what that meant in terms of physiology, whether you're burning mostly fat or you're burning into the sugar burning zones, that was hugely valuable. I wear one to this day on just about every run, because it's so easy to fool yourself and hear that thing beep when you think you're fine. So that, and then the heart rate variability to measure the beat to beat intervals at rest, that's been a really valuable tool. And I've, been introduced to that only about 4 years ago. I have an app now called Brad Beat on the iOS store, my own custom designed heart rate variability app that's really easy to use. So I'm a huge fan of that. But I feel like some of the story has been distorted a little bit, and I've read articles that kind of upset me, where they're saying you get your heart rate variability, and if you have a high number, you're good to go and go train. And so I don't want a number to tell me what to do. I always want to use my intuition about how I feel about that number. Joel Jamieson, the famed MMA trainer, 8weeksout.com, he's one of the leaders in heart rate variability. He was using the big $30,000 box like 2 decades ago, before anybody. And he made an interesting insight that if you have a higher than baseline HRV number, in other words, we always think higher is better, right? More B2B intervals means you're more rested, you're more stress balanced. But he says sometimes that elevated HRV number can be representative of the parasympathetic system predominating over the sympathetic nervous system. Why? Because you fried your sympathetic nervous system with an overly stressful period of your life, whether it was training, travel, work stress. And so you trapped yourself so much that you're in this recovery dominant state, and you need to stay there until your HRV comes back down to normal, and then you can go out and train again. And when I heard that, I was like, wow, this makes so much more sense now, because I would deliver these high HRV readings, suggesting that I was super rested and ready to go kick some butt again, but I didn't feel well that day. I felt like I needed more recovery. Same with a abnormally low resting heart rate. We always want to get that resting heart rate down, 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 lower, and you get in better shape. And now it's 42 and it used to be 46. Sometimes when you're really low, it's a sign of complete exhaustion and burnout from 6 weeks of doing way too much. So we always have to put those numbers in context, and the intuition never lies. I don't know if you've heard Dr. Kelly Starrett, best-selling author of Becoming a Supple Leopard, and he has a website called The Ready State, talking about functional fitness and recovery and mobility. And he says the number one training metric that they've ever discovered, better than any blood value or any biofeedback, is this concept called desire to train. And this is with the leading Olympic and world-class athletes, is the subjective desire to train is number one. And number two might be your blood lactate level or your HRV or whatever it is. But desire to train, if you don't have it, we got issues. We got to talk.
That's absolutely profound. I mean, you can do everything like you said, lactate levels, HRV, but if you don't want to go out there and give it your 100% effort, what's the point? You're not getting to where you think you want to be in the first place. Going back to heart rate variability, if everything you were saying there makes a lot of sense. Even myself, for instance, would train different ways on different days based on heart rate variability, and then in the back of the mind thinking, okay, why is the time not where it should be today? Why is the effort not where I think that the output should be commensurated? And I think a lot has to go with knowing your own body and even keeping track. What's your HRV in this day? How's your performance? And over time, you can start to figure out a little bit what numbers, where you should be at, and it makes a lot more sense to you, a little bit more individualized. I think that's kind of what you're referring to.
Sure. Yeah, and an interesting concept is kind of building in the fitness community now that I'm really fascinated with, and it's this idea of kind of a kinder, gentler approach to pursuing fitness goals. A friend of mine, Dr. Craig Marker, you can find his work on breakingmuscle.com. Phil Maffetone, who's been talking about this stuff, the balance between health and fitness for decades. I saw another guy on Joe Rogan, Firas Zahabi. He's a famed MMA trainer. And the message that they're all conveying is that you don't really want to be sore after workouts. You don't want to be tired and fatigued after workouts. What you want to do is just put in just enough effort to, progress with your fitness, but not break yourself down. And we're so used to like going in and putting in an epic workout. You're sore, stiff, and tired the next day, but you think you accomplished so much, and then can't wait to get back in the gym when the soreness goes away and do it again and again. And it's kind of like getting punched in the face, falling down on the ground, having to get back up, dust yourself off, get punched in the face again. And the alternative approach would be to train within your means every single time, so that if you, let's say, I like to high jump. I'm in the masters high jump, and I'm I get so excited when I go out to the track and take my jumps that I might take 20 jumps, even though Olympian level guys will take 7 or 8 good jumps, and they think that's all they have on a certain day. And then the explosiveness is gone, and you start losing your form, and you wrap it up and live to see another day. So I've had to learn to regulate my competitive intensity again, my passion and enthusiasm for the workout, and just leave a little bit in the tank so that I can come back sooner than otherwise. If I really trash myself, I have to take a week off, especially at my age. But if I can just put in a more consistent pattern of workouts that aren't as stressful, you allow yourself to build and build and build without that interruption from falling apart from a workout that's too stressful. Dr. Marker has one of the greatest articles I've read in decades called HIIT versus HIRT. HIIT, we all know that as high intensity interval training, and Dr. Marker's answer to that is a concept called high intensity repeat training. So with high intensity interval training, with a workout like that, by design, it's designed to be depleting and exhausting by the end, because the instructor at your spin class or your coach on the running track is asking you to repeat these high quality performances over and over with not enough rest. So as the workout goes on and you're asked to do 10 times 2 minutes of sprinting on the bike, when the music stops, we're going to do another one, and you keep trying over and over with only 20 seconds rest, what's happening inside your body is you are literally destroying the basic structure of your cells. They're combusting to fuel that maximum energy output over and over again. It's called disassembling and deamination of the cellular proteins to kind of fuel this fire to keep going. And what happens in the aftermath of that, in the 36 to 48 hours after that, your body is in a state of disrepair and breakdown, and you feel like crap. So anyone who's listening and has done a really hard spin class at the gym on Monday morning, and you don't feel that great on Tuesday afternoon and Wednesday morning, and you're still working through muscle soreness and stiffness, these are signs that you overdid it in the workout. And if you just tone things down a little bit and allow yourself over a span of the next 3 months or 6 months to build and build without interruption, you're going to get way fitter. You're going to have less cellular breakdown and side effects that affect your normal everyday function. And it's such a nice message to hear that you shouldn't be getting sore after workouts, because I've been getting sore after workouts for decades. Just seems like, there I am sore again. I overdid it a little bit. But if you could just tone everything down, oh my gosh, I think if people can embrace this message and realize that it doesn't have to be about pain and suffering, because we know that the big secret in the fitness industry is the attrition, right? Like January 1st, the parking lot's so full at your gym, you can't even find a place to park. And then on, April Fool's Day, the place is empty because people have been, fatigued and overtrained by even their personal trainer, or just the system, the classes on the schedule, the format of the classes, too much, especially for a recreational athlete.
You have been a part of quite a few books, a lot on nutrition, ketosis, ketogenesis. Have you always lived a ketogenic lifestyle, even back in the day when you were a triathlete, or is this something you kind of evolved into?
Oh my God, nobody knew what the heck that stuff was. I mean, it would have been the craziest notion to cut carbohydrates out of your diet, because, we've been socialized to believe that especially endurance sports are fueled by the carbohydrates fuel the working muscles. And as soon as you're done working out, you have to replenish. That was the dogma that we've learned for decades. And only in the last, handful of years have people realized that, I mean, the primal Paleocene's been going for maybe 15 to 20 years, right? The fact that we could honor our ancestor diet, which happens to be way lower in carbohydrate than the standard American diet, and lose weight and be healthy. But when it comes to the endurance scene and putting those calories in, only recently have we discovered that you can become what's called a fat-adapted endurance athlete. So you can teach your body to burn fat efficiently for hours and hours in many cases, without even needing a significant amount of external calorie ingestion, carbohydrate ingestion, to continue going. But the beautiful transition that you can make to a fat-adapted endurance athlete requires mainly the dietary transition, where you're cutting those carbs out of your diet, the processed carbs, and then teaching your body to burn fat 24/7. And then when you integrate the workouts, you have a much better chance of becoming this fat burning machine, because you're able to do it at rest. And so going out there and doing a fasted workout, of trying to run 10 miles in a fasted state, if you've been used to eating high cereal breakfast, that's not going to work out very well for you. So now this concept of transitioning the diet away from the standard American grain-based high carbohydrate diet to a more nutrient-dense, colorful plants and animals that have the most nutrition and don't have that carb spike that's going to put you into a roller coaster pattern of being dependent on external calories. That's your first step. And then when you train properly and regulate your heart rate, so that you do a workout that's in the fat burning zones, and stays there, rather than getting into the higher intensity and asking for more sugar burning to happen. So you do these fat burning workouts, you eat a nutrient dense diet that happens to be higher in fat, lower in carb, and then you unlock this incredible potential to go for hours and hours without eating the calories, and also burning a cleaner fuel source, because fat and ketones have less oxidative stress, less inflammation when they're burned in the body. And so now you can be an extreme endurance athlete and also be healthy, because you're not slamming these gels and bars and drinks down your throat that we have done for so long, which are so incredibly unhealthy. It's just it makes so much sense. And now I love seeing these people that are the outliers, that are doing amazing feats without needing carbohydrate calories.
But you said the big thing about being fat adapted. How long, in your experience, have you seen others actually become so-called fat adapted?
Yeah, that's a good question, and it really depends on what you're coming to the table with. And so, if you had years and decades of accumulated metabolic damage from yo-yo dieting, especially, probably the worst thing you can do to your body, or from extremely high carbohydrate intake, and in many cases the endurance athlete, the picture of fitness with the six pack and the impressive physique running down the street, but someone who's eating 4,000 calories a day, high carbohydrate intake, might have a tougher time than someone who has been working in a cubicle and watching their caloric intake, and can make an easier transition because they don't have these massive calorie demands and have become highly addicted to sugar because they're trying to run 80 miles a week or pedal their bicycle for hours and hours every week. So if you do it correctly, I think you can make big progress in a short time and not have that pain and suffering element that so many people are being told this is part of the game. Like, oh, yeah, the keto flu, don't worry, just tough it out for a while and you'll feel better in 3 weeks. I will never say that to anybody. That's complete bullshit. And it's all it's going to do is turn people off and have them spin out, maybe not 3 weeks from now, but 6 months from now, because they're forcing things to happen that aren't naturally meant to be. So when you can eliminate the nutrient deficient refined carbohydrates, sugars, grains, and of course the refined industrial seed oil is probably the worst thing you can put into your body. Those mess up your fat metabolism as well, just like eating a lot of sugar does. So when you can ditch these big three modern foods, we call them, again, sugars, grains, and refined industrial seed oils, when you can just clear that out of your diet tomorrow after listening to the show, hang up, throw that stuff away, and start emphasizing foods that actually have nutrition, that don't spike insulin, you should feel better right away. And if you don't, there might be some little nuances you can play with. Sometimes people need to increase sodium when they cut the carbs out of their diet, because the carbs cause that bloating and inflammation throughout the body. So we retain more sodium because we're unhealthy and our cells are all bloated. And then, you lose weight and people look at your face a week after you change your diet and, hey, you look good. Did you lose some weight? And because that reduction in inflammation and water retention throughout the body, which is a good thing, but it also means that you need to rebalance your sodium intake because you've just shed a lot of sodium. And low sodium has the same symptoms as the low carb flu, where you feel like crap, your energy's low in the afternoon, you're craving quick energy carbohydrates, things like that you think came from the dietary change, but it just came from a quick adjustment. And then the second thing that I find people would be benefiting to focus on when they change their diet is eat a lot of the good foods. Don't have to be restricting calories when we're making this massive transition away from carbohydrate dependency to become fat adapted. Now, down the line, if part of your goal is to drop excess body fat, which is probably 95% of the people in this game have some body composition goal that's involved in terms of, wanting to be healthier, but also wouldn't mind to, see the six-pack come back. That can happen down the line. But first, you have to become good at burning fat. So if you're trying to cut all these carbs that you've been running on for decades and reduce your calories, you're going to get tired. You're going to engage in assorted compensatory mechanisms by the body to slow down your metabolism and have all kinds of, fallout from that. And people have heard these stories about how, the diets are dangerous because they slow you down. So if you can switch from the big giant bowl of processed cereal every morning over to a big giant omelet, that's what we're talking about, is getting the nutrition you need, getting satisfied and completely content with each meal, not having any deprivation or suffering involved in the journey, having a big old steak for dinner with a big pile of steaming broccoli drizzled in butter and whatever else you like. If you need to snack on a big handful of macadamia nuts in the afternoon or some 85% dark chocolate, all these things are fine and dandy. As you transition, you give yourself whatever you need and whatever your appetite calls for. And then, as you know, we continue to talk about this, the keto scene and the intermittent fasting popularity. Someday, when you're really metabolically flexible, then the meals can be take it or leave it, and you can feel fine. You can fast until 12 noon. But I don't want people going on to the internet and watching a YouTube video of some exuberant person that says, fasting's great, try it every day, until you're ready. Otherwise, you're going to suffer.
I take it you found that as well, where people will see something and jump on the bandwagon without having too much of a background, huh?
Yeah, especially the keto bandwagon, because it's become so incredibly popular. I mean, Mark Sisson and I published this book, The Keto Reset Diet, in October 2017. And in the process of researching and writing that book, it wasn't out yet, man. There was no keto thing. It was a laboratory concept that was been used to treat people with drug-resistant seizures, because it was found to lower the seizure incidence because it gives more oxygen to the brain, which is not a bad reason to try to start a diet. But it was so new that, we had to acquaint ourselves with how this whole thing worked and how you're, making ketones to replace glucose in the brain. And it was fascinating to get on the ground floor of this thing, and then to sit back and see now the word's everywhere. It's on half of the products in the Whole Foods market. But I think it's been widely distorted, disrespected, misinterpreted, because ketosis is a survival mechanism that comes from starvation, primarily fasting, restricting calories, as well as restricting carbohydrates. So if you are, not eating enough food, if you're in a starvation state, this wonderful mechanism happens where you're fueling your brain with the energy it needs to continue to go hunting for food. If you're talking about our ancestors in a life or death situation. But what we've seen in the keto movement is people are using this as an excuse to stuff their faces with fat all day in the name of being keto, or even thinking that stuffing their face with fat will help them make ketones or lose weight or any of these things. And so the idea is just becoming more metabolically flexible, where you can skip meals anytime you want and feel fine, and then prompt this ketone production, which has all these amazing benefits. But the best way to get to keto is through fasting rather than eating a bunch of fat.
What can you say to individuals who think that being keto, as they call it here, involves zero vegetation whatsoever? A lot of people think, it's just, they get the wrong ideas. Sometimes they think it's just meat. That's it. It's just meat. And there's no vegetables and there's no nutritional value, and they freak out about it. So what are your thoughts on too many people saying that?
Yeah, I mean, there's this, I like the concept of dirty keto as a comparison. And that term means that you're looking at the macros, right? There's some guidelines for keto macros, which is a lot of fat, a sensible amount of protein, not an extreme amount of protein, and then extremely low carbohydrate intake. So like any food that qualifies for keto is thrown into the mix here. My favorite example was like a artificially sweetened orange soda with some heavy cream in a blender with ice, and then you have this slushy thing that's keto. But I don't think that's what what our ancestors had in mind, right? Or what evolution had in mind. So, we got to get away from just focusing on macros and not looking at the nutrient density of the food. And it's pretty obvious, but I'm glad you brought it up, because, it's out there. People are just obsessing on staying aligned with these macros. And now, buying processed products, which anything processed is not going to be at the same level as something natural. And I know that, we have need food on the go, and it's a better choice than a power bar or a Cliff Bar. So that's all good. But just having a more sensible approach and working toward this ability to burn body fat as the first choice, right? And then second choice might be, ingested fat from a healthy, nutritious omelet or steak, or, some sardines and all kinds of the stuff that you see in the recipe books. We have a book called Keto Cooking for Cool Dudes. That's a lot of fun, and we have a lighthearted approach throughout, and we're making fun of the posers and the posturing, and just putting in, everything's tongue in cheek, the whole book. But the recipes are great because they're really simple and they're quick to throw together, because it's kind of like, marketed for dudes or cool ladies who have a sense of humor that can buy it and give it to their dude or look at the recipes themselves. But we want to make it easy and get into a good groove where it's not this stressful thing. And boy, I mean, picking, processed foods, that's a tough one.
So speaking about dudes here, I was perusing and reading a few things, and I see something called a MOFO mission. I love it. Absolutely love the acronym there. What's going on with the MOFO mission?
Yeah, so I found these guys at Ancestral Supplements making these really unique animal organ meats in a capsule. And so it kind of helps you achieve this objective that we should consume the most nutrient-dense foods on the planet, which in the ancestral world we believe to be organ meats. I mean, they're off the charts as far as their nutritional profile, liver being the king of all foods in terms of, gram for gram, providing the most nutrient density. But a lot of people don't have their their A game going with making liver and preparing it in delicious meals, and myself included. I'm trying, and I go and buy it, and I eat it, and it's okay, but sometimes it can slip away. So now you can get these bottled supplements of freeze-dried, 100% pure, 100% grass-fed animals from New Zealand, and they have liver and heart and bone marrow and all these great things. So we put together a formulation specifically for male hormone optimization, male sexual reproductive function, testosterone boosting, and there's a lot of good research from in ancestral health world that when you consume the unique nutrients that are present in a certain organ, it helps support the function of the corresponding organ in your body. And this has also been Chinese medicine and ancient healers, Native American healers have been doing this for thousands of years. Someone has a bad kidney, they feed them the kidney of the animal, and health is boosted because they're getting their cofactors, molecular biodirectors, signaling that's coming from what you ingest to help boost that organ function in your body. So this particular product is called MOFO, and it stands for Male Optimization Formula with Organs. So you can be a bad mofo when you check this out. So my website, bradkearns.com, you'll see a link called MOFO, and I have a lot of supporting information. Because I'm also, I've been in the supplement and the health business for a long time, but I feel like a lot of times we're just putting supplements out there instead of making it a big picture approach where the lifestyle elements are important too. So again, trying to be lighthearted, but also, convey a serious message. It's like, I don't even want you trying the thing unless you want to buy into a complete MOFO lifestyle commitment where you got to get your sleep, you got to do the right workouts, you got to quit being an asshole to your girlfriend or wife. All these kind of things are in the mix because they affect our hormonal and cellular function. And I'm, putting these shows out on my podcast with experts like John Gray, the best-selling relationship author of all time, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. And we cover a broad spectrum of topics rather than just focusing on how you're going to get your biceps bigger and recover faster, or even, how you're going to get cut up and lose some more body fat on your diet, because these things are, they're sort of in a bubble, right? I mean, we're living an entire life and we're leaving the gym or hanging up from listening to a podcast and going back and trying to engage with little kids who are now home during the quarantine. We have to homeschool them. So there's all these other factors that we got to consider to be the best we can be, even as an athlete or whatever that narrow goal that we're addressing when we're talking about human performance optimization and all the hot topics that we get with, the fitness enthusiasts.
So before we wrap this up here, I've been looking for a long while at the Guinness Book of World Records on, okay, there's got to be something in here.
Got to be something, man.
So I'm reading that this guy named Brad Kearns has this really unique record. Had no idea it existed. So it's not full contact golf, obviously. Speed golf. How did you ever come up with this?
Oh my gosh, this incredible grassroots sport of speed golf has been going on for decades. And it's the idea of going out to the golf course and trying to shoot a good score. It's not fun and games and hockey pucking around, but you are timed and your score is kept. And you add those two together to get a speed golf score. So every minute on the course and every stroke counts for a point. And so we have a tournament competition where you start in a staggered manner. So one guy goes off, and then 5 minutes later, the next guy and the next guy. And we're actually running the course at a pretty high speed and trying to shoot a good score at the same time. So it's a real, it's kind of like biathlon in the Winter Olympics where they're ski racing and then they stop and shoot at a target. And I think people have seen that, where if you miss the target, you got to ski a penalty lap. So you got to be really accurate as a shooter and then ski really fast too. And in our case, you got to move through the course really quickly. But if you're thinking that, like, if you miss a short putt carelessly, you just lost a point, which is the same as a minute of running. And I can run an entire golf hole in a minute. So the best players in the world are shooting at or near par and completing an 18-hole golf course in 45, 47, 43 minutes. My best score on the pro circuit, I'm one of the top 20 guys in the world. I've been competing in the world championships for 5 years consecutive now. And my best score is a 78 on a championship golf course in 47 minutes. And that's a 125 in speed golf parlance. And boy, is it amazing experience to be rushing through the golf course, but kind of getting into this peak performance zone where you're not thinking, you're not overly analytical like most golfers, are harmed by that. But you just run up to the ball, you catch your breath for 1 second, you take a swing, and it goes onto the green or it goes into the sand trap, but whatever, you're not thinking about it much because you're running up to the next shot and you're just executing. And it's really beautiful because it kind of puts you in that intuitive, reactive peak performance state where you can actually play really well because you're not taking too much time. So I love the sport, but the Guinness World Record you're referencing is sort of this crazy offshoot from the proper tournament competition of speed golf that I just described. And I found this record on YouTube. I couldn't believe it existed, but it was for the fastest single hole of golf ever played. And it has to be 500-yard hole. It can't be, the hole down number 3 at the park that's 100 yards.
Right.
So the minimum length of the hole is 500 yards, which is a par 5. So it's a lot of running. And I saw this cool dude in England called Steve Jeffs. He had the record before I did. And there's this viral YouTube video where he gets dogpiled at the finish line by his support crew because he just broke the previous record. And I saw that thing, man, and I was captivated because my competitive passions are speed golf and then sprinting and high jumping. So I work out really hard on the track as a sprinter, and I'm running sprints all the time and, getting good at the 400-meter run and track meet. And so I'm like, wait a second, this is my deal right here, man. I'm going to go shatter this thing the first time out. And I went out there really cocky, got my stopwatch and tried to play the last hole on my course as a par 5 as fast as I could. And I was like 30 seconds off of this guy's record, which is terrible. The record was 150 and I did it 220 or something. And so I went home and I sent him an email and I'm like, dude, how did you do that thing on YouTube? How the heck did you play a golf hole in 1 minute and 50 seconds and shoot a decent score? And he wrote me back this nice letter and he says, I practiced for months and months. I knew exactly where to hit each shot. And so that was my mission. I locked into that thing. And I applied to Guinness. Speaking of trying to find a record to break, these guys are tough, man. It's a 12-week application process. I had to submit, and then when I set the record, I had to submit 48 different supported documents of evidence, a photograph of each shot, a video of the entire thing. I had to have 2 official timers, a scorekeeper and a backup scorekeeper, an independent witness who I didn't know before that day to sign and say they saw me instead of just my support crew, right? This whole package that I had to submit. But I had a great time pursuing this record. I broke it twice. You can see me on YouTube. It says Brad Kearns, speed golf world record. And I had this miracle performance actually where my first try, I played this par 5 hole and I got a birdie using only one club, the 3-wood. So I teed off with a 3-wood, hit a 3-wood, hit a chip shot with a 3-wood, and hit a putt with a 3-wood, which is crazy. Any golfer knows. I had to practice for months and months putting with a 3-wood so I could do it. But the fact that this stuff all came together under pressure to me was amazing. And it was just such a joy because when you're sprinting full speed, you're allowed to try again. But after you do one hole full speed, I'm not walking back there and going as fast as I would on the first try. So you're going to have a less chance. It's going to be slower running in each successive attempt. And so it's really like a do or die, all or nothing on the first attempt. And I can't beat getting a birdie. And it's like something it'll never be equal the rest of my life. It was just incredible. And so anyone who asks me about it, of course, we can eat up some podcast time. But I think the message that I like to convey is whatever age we're at, whatever your athletic background is, whatever your current life circumstances is, you've got to find something that lights you up, that you can lock into and set an actual goal and get up every day and have something to look forward to. And it's maintaining that passion and that competitive intensity throughout your life. And I think so many dudes of I'm now 55 years old, and we go through the decades where, back in the day, I played a little ball at the college level. I did this, I did it. Everyone's got a story. Yeah, I was on the team in high school, whatever it is. And then we kind of drift into the leather couch to watch the Red Zone NFL all day long on Sunday, or we're watching the NBA. We're making these minor attempts to go out there and keep in shape and maybe go play basketball once a month, and then strain our knee because we haven't done any of the preparatory workouts to be ready. And I think there's so much more potential here for everybody, whatever it is you like to do. And this thing didn't dominate my life, right? I still have a job and a family and other responsibilities. I'm not a professional racer anymore, but the fact that I had this thing to pursue and to go after, it meant so much to me. It was just as significant as crossing the finish line of a world level race and being on TV and being in a magazine years ago, because to me, it meant something. And so when you make it mean something and put some significance on your goals, boy, that's going to transfer over into being a peak performer in all other areas of life.
All day long. Brad, how can individuals get in contact with you, your website, books, just to say hi?
Thanks, Jim. Yeah, I have this website, bradkearns.com. It's wild and crazy, and I think you'll have a good time. I'm trying to have fun along the way and not take myself so seriously. So, I think people will find it refreshing, especially the Get Over Yourself podcast, where we're working on this theme throughout every show and have these wonderful guests. So you can find that wherever podcasts are, and also get all that content on my website, and just keep having fun, people. Keep doing what you want to do.
Love it. Brad, from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you very much for being here with us, and hopefully our paths will definitely cross again.
We got Functionised. All right. Keep up.
Yeah.
Keep it up. I love what you're doing, and boy, it's just nice to connect. Yeah.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you, Brad.